up and welcome to My Point of View. I am your fat and opinionated host, and earlier today a news article dropped about the Idaho 4 case, and it turns out that one of Ethan Chapin's family members, Ethan Chapin, if you don't know, he is one of the Idaho 4, he is one of the victims. One of his family members has spoken out, and she is questioning and kind of criticizing Dylan, the surviving roommate, or one of the surviving roommates. She is questioning why she did not call 911. Now, I went over this entire article over on my main channel, and I expanded upon my thoughts over there. So if you haven't already, you might want to check out that video as well. But I want to go deeper into this because I have a lot of thoughts on this one. And I feel like this is kind of, I don't know how to put it. In some ways, it's kind of clearing the air because a lot of people have been wondering why she didn't call 911. And it seems like whenever you question that, people attack you online because everyone's so sensitive towards this topic. But it is a totally valid question. It's the most rational thing to ask. And I understand wanting to be protective of these people. And let me just say this right now, before anyone goes wild. I don't want you all attacking Dylan. Dylan is not to blame. Okay, Bryan Kohberger is to blame, allegedly. So I'm not here to place any blame on Dylan. I'm not here to attack Dylan or disrespect Dylan. But this is a conversation that needs to be had, in my opinion. At the very least, it's not a conversation that we should shy away from. I mean, if anything, cases like this one should awaken people to the harsh reality of life. Every day is not a walk in a field full of dandelions. And Dylan's life going forward is not going to be a fun-filled walk in the park. Dylan will be called upon to testify, and Bryan Kohberger's legal defense team will tear into her story and try to prove that she is not credible, let's just say. They are going to question why she didn't call 911. They're going to act as if this sighting she had of Bryan Kohberger is a total nothing burger because she didn't react in the way that people would typically react if you have a home invader. So, she's not going to have it easy moving forward. That doesn't mean anyone should attack her, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we should have to cower away from our thoughts and opinions. I think there's a respectful way to share your thoughts, and I don't think anyone's freedom of speech should be quelled simply because people like to pretend to be offended just for the sole purpose of being offended. I think a lot of you all realize that in today's day and age, everyone wants to be offended by something. People literally wake up and their sole purpose in life is to go online and find something to be offended about. It's part of this overall victim mentality that has taken over our country. It's swept the entire world, really. There are still places on earth that don't have this mentality, but the Western world definitely does. And I think it's a dangerous mentality to have because in a case like this, when we see someone make the mistake that Dylan made, we should use that as a stepping stool, as something to learn from. You know, as we should use that, you know, moving forward to encourage young people not to make the same mistake Dylan did. That doesn't mean we have to rip Dylan down, but I think it's important to raise awareness that you should not react to situations in the way that Dylan did. But instead of having those conversations, we're making excuses, and all we're doing is coddling a future generation into making these same mistakes. Yes, if you hear your roommates fighting for their lives and screaming bloody murder, and you see a home invader, yes, you should call law enforcement. But I want to read you all what Ethan Chapin's sister-in-law has to say. She says, "Yes, I hope it will come out what Dylan heard. Dylan supposedly called all the girls in the house after the crying and screaming stopped, and no one answered. And she still did not call the police. She needs to explain herself and her actions that night." Ethan's sister-in-law goes on to say that the 911 caller was a friend who Dylan called over. There was a guy who Dylan called over because she was scared from what she had heard in the night. He went into Xana and Ethan's room first and then called 911. So as you all know, this happened in the middle of the night, and Dylan never called. If we're believing Ethan's family here, Dylan never called 911. Her response was just to call some dude who eventually came over, and then he called 911 or made the move to, hey, we need to call 911. So I understand that there's millions of excuses online as to why Dylan reacted this way. And I think most of them are really bogus. And I think in reality that I would ask, do you want to teach if you have young kids right now, do you want to teach your kids to respond to this situation in the way that Dylan did? Or do you want them to respond in this situation in a proper manner? I think there's only one logical and valid answer to that question. Therefore, there is no debate or argument here. We can all, as sane, logical adults, agree that if we have a child, we do not want to teach them to react to situations like this in the way that Dylan did. We want to teach them to do the exact opposite. To call someone. To call 911. Now, there's a lot of questions as to why she didn't. I'm not here to spread theories. I don't think that Dylan had anything to do with any of this. I know there are people online that will say that. I don't think that's the case. I know some people think that, hey, maybe Dylan, maybe there was certain things in the house that they wouldn't want police to find. And maybe that's why she didn't want to call 911. Because maybe there were some substances in the house. Maybe she was on something. Maybe she thought she would get in trouble. I think that's a possibility. But what it ultimately boils down to here, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. Of course, I wasn't there. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then okay. In my opinion, I just think it was a young person doing young, stupid things. Not fully grasping the reality of the situation, not fully grasping the seriousness of the situation and the severity of the situation, simply because their minds are preoccupied by social media and other stuff. That's what I think ultimately happened here. I've seen the excuses of, oh, she must have frozen in fear. And people are like, Cinema Shogun, you don't know what it's like. You'll freeze in fear and you won't be able to move for 12 hours. Now, I don't believe that for one bit. For one, from her own account, she didn't see the actual scene. So she didn't see anything to traumatize her. All she simply saw was Bryan Kohberger, allegedly, walk past her and leave the house. So there was nothing there that should have traumatized her to the point of not being able to do anything. And the fact that she called this dude, and she was perfectly okay to call this dude, but not 911, it's just, I think, another case, and we see it all the time, of young people just being young, dumb, and naive. And that doesn't make Dylan a monster. It doesn't make her a villain. It doesn't make her any of those things. Because people are capable of making mistakes. Young people make mistakes all the time. I understand it was a party house and there was always a lot of ruckus going on there. So if anything, I think that's more of a valid excuse than to pretend as if she just froze to death and just stood there frozen until 12 o'clock the next afternoon. And like I said, it's all part of this victim mentality that people are injecting into everything, and they make excuses for everything instead of just rationally thinking. And that's what someone with a victim-like mentality will do. They do not view the world through the same lens that me and you view the world from. They view it from a victim standpoint, and they will forever make excuses so that person or themselves can be a victim. And then if you don't see things their way, they will act offended. They will get offended, like some of you all watching this video right now. You will get offended by my words. You will clutch your pearls and you will get angry and upset because at the end of the day, what's important for you is being the victim in the long run. So what will happen here is people will once again claim victimhood because they're upset by the words that I said in this video. So there's never a way around it with these type of people. That's something I've had to come to realize, that no matter what, even if you try to explain yourself, they will always find a way to be a victim in the long run. And all I would say is I encourage you all not to have that mentality. It's a dangerous mentality to have. It's a depressing mentality to have. It stifles your ability to enjoy life. And I understand that there are some of you out there who have had horrible things done to you. That does not define who you are. That is not your number one personality trait. That is just something that happened to you in your past. Yes, it may not be good, and it's okay to talk about it, but it's not something that you should dwell on as the number one thing that sticks out about you. You know what I mean? You are not defined by that. But let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comment section. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell. And as always, remain opinionated.